Not long ago, I introduced Claude Note, a powerful AI-enabled meeting assistant, and today we're excited to have in hand Claude's latest upgraded version. Is this a platinum credit card? Nope. It's Claude Note Pro, your updated AI-powered meeting assistant. With 4 built-in microphones, Claude Note captures everything and records crystal clear audio up to 5 meters away. But it's more than a recorder. Take photos, jot ideas, mark highlights, and during key discussions, if I press the button just right here, it instantly saves 30 seconds of key audio as a highlight. I never miss important details. And you've got 50 hours non-stop recording on Note Pro, or 60 hours on standby. There's a smart display showing battery life, recording status, and file transfers, so you always know what's going on. Then, Claude turns it into structured notes, summaries, insights, to-dos, even analysis of power dynamics in the room. And with Ask Claude, your contextual AI assistant, you can draft emails, extract data, brainstorm, or find anything across past meetings. And you're safe knowing that your data is yours and completely private. Click the link in the video description to pre-order your Claude Note Pro. And if you'd like to experience Claude Intelligence even earlier, I've got a special offer for you. Use the code GB20 when ordering Claude Note and get 20% off.
Right to politics over here, and Sir Keir Starmer and the Chancellor Rachel Reeves, wait for it, reportedly scrapping the plan to raise income tax. So if you didn't know what was going on in the budget in less than a fortnight, neither does number 11 at the moment, because they're worried about voter fury and a Labour coup.
Well, with just 12 days now to go until the nightmare before Christmas budget, as it's being dubbed in some of the tabloids, officials have told the Financial Times that the Downing Street duo have committed to a major U-turn and return to the confines of Labour's manifesto. Let's
talk to political commentator Theo Usherwood. I don't know whether to laugh or cry, Theo, because with this, only last week she was saying, well, it's fair for everyone to sort of pay their way in all of this. Now that doesn't seem to be the case.
Well,
she's still got to find the money.
Well, let's wait and see, because you read down the Financial Times story, and I'm sure it's very well sourced, and actually what the Chancellor is now looking at are the thresholds at which you start paying various rates of tax. So while she may not increase the basic rate or the higher rate of tax, she can change the thresholds, which will mean that actually people end up paying more tax.
But isn't she looking at freezing the which are already frozen until 2028? So it's not going to generate any more money till after that.
So she could freeze. So she could freeze the thresholds further from which would another 2 years, and that would raise another £8 to £10 billion per year. But she could also change the thresholds, say, for the personal allowance. So that's at £12,500 a year, tax free. You only start paying the basic rate after that. If she was to cut that, then of course she could say, well, I haven't raised the rate of income tax, but a lot of poor, people on low incomes are going to be paying more income tax as a result. She could potentially look to cut the threshold at which you start paying 45 pence in the pound, the additional rate of tax. That's around £125,000 at the moment. Cut it down to £70,000 a year, so at £70,000 or more, you pay 45 pence in the pound. That would raise £7 billion a year. So there's plenty of trickery the Chancellor has yet to rule out.
What do you think's led to this? Has it been the briefing, the chaos, the leadership bids allegedly of this week that they've just said it's not worth the risk of breaking manifesto?
Absolutely, Ellie. That's completely it. So it's the mutinous Labour MPs. It's the briefing war between Number 10 and Wes Streeting, and the Chancellor and the Prime Minister are essentially joined at the hip with this budget, and they do not have the political capital amongst Labour MPs, let alone voters, to come back with something that breaks the manifesto pledge. And that there's clearly jitters within Number 11 at the moment about exactly how badly this budget can go down and whether it could be the straw that breaks the camel's back.
But where's the gumption? I mean, look...
It's gone.
We look a lot at Trump. Trump does a lot of things that a lot of people don't like. A lot of people do like, but a lot of people don't like. But one thing, whichever persuasion you come from, you can perhaps admire him for, is the fact he says something and he does it.
Yeah.
So if he says something, you know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas this sort of wishy-washy, changing the point all the time, is very disconcerting.
But Trump doesn't have a parliamentary system,
No.
so that's firstly, and he's an executive. And
So does that mean there was a real concern in Downing Street that this budget would not be passed? The budget bill would not get passed because of their own backbenchers?
Well, yeah, I mean, it could. That would be one way. I mean, and of course, in a supply and confidence, your budget. If you can't pass your budget, then the government falls, and that would precipitate a general election, you would think. So this budget needs to pass, and of course, there are going to be Labour MPs who are very unhappy with whatever is in the budget, but the Chancellor and the Prime Minister need to be able to make the case that in order to keep this Labour government on the road and functioning, then this budget needs to pass. But there is only so much that they can stomach, and that's why the Chancellor, for instance, isn't going to come back with cuts to the welfare bill, because, of course, we saw what happened in the summer. And therein lies the problem, that inevitably there are going to have to be tax rises. And there's another story, and the reason that she's going to have to do something with income tax, and to say that income tax, the receipts from income tax aren't going to increase, I think is off the mark, is because actually if you look at other taxes, you can alter your behaviour. So the Times has a story about plans to clamp down on LLPs, limited liability partnerships, professionals, and the way that they pay their tax. But inevitably that's going to lead to people altering their behaviour, and now she appears to have backed down, according to the newspaper, because actually the Treasury have come back with modelling that shows she'll raise less money than she already has because people alter their behaviour. If you want to increase the revenue, tax receipts into the Treasury, then the Chancellor is going to have to do something with the big three: income tax, VAT, or national insurance. She can't deal with VAT, increased VAT, because that will lead to higher inflation. We've already got elements of stagflation at the moment. National insurance, we saw what happened last year, and therefore that leaves income tax. And she's going to do something which is going to mean that we're all going to, one way or another, end up paying more tax.
OK. Theo, we'll see you in the next hour. Thank you very much. On that cheery note...
Oh, yes.
Should we look at the weather?
We better had. It was chucking down this morning where I live. What's it like where you are?
Every time you're online, your money and your identity are at risk. Scams now make up nearly 40% of all crime in the UK. That's thousands of attacks every single day. In Britain, someone has their identity stolen every 2 minutes, leaving victims with wrecked finances and years of stress. The threat is real, and you could be next. ExpressVPN is your shield against criminals. It locks down your devices, hiding your personal information and financial details from hackers, scammers, and anyone else looking to exploit you. So whether you're checking your bank, shopping, or just browsing, ExpressVPN makes you invisible to prying eyes trying to steal your money and your identity. ExpressVPN shields your data with military-grade AES 256 encryption. That's the same standard trusted by the US government to guard classified information. This is the highest level of online security you can get. So don't wait for disaster. Secure up to 14 devices at once and get powerful password protection. Real support is available 24/7 because cybercrime never sleeps. Save up to 73% on annual plans today. Every moment you hesitate is another moment you're exposed. Protect your money and protect your identity. Get ExpressVPN right now.
Time for the papers this morning. Nigel Nelson and Claire Pearsall, good morning, you two.
Morning.
Claire, let's start with the Telegraph. Should we be looking at another Trump clip of the same event doctored by the BBC, this time on Newsnight?
Such a good week for the BBC. They're having an amazing time. They're not putting a foot wrong, and they're putting our country on the map as one of the best state-owned broadcasters. I mean, you couldn't make this up, could you? So it wasn't bad enough to have the clip on Panorama, which was spliced together so badly. I mean, the sort of statements that Trump made were some time apart. It wasn't even a couple of sentences.
53 minutes.
53 minutes. And they spliced that together. And now we find out that Newsnight have had the same clip prior to that, which was highlighted at the time for not being correct, and was dismissed as, oh, it's all right, don't worry about it. I mean, that just sums up the attitude, I think, of the BBC when it comes to things like this. They know that they have made mistakes, especially over the last year. We've seen an enormous amount of mistakes. And I think yes, they have to apologise, but I think there has to be some more scrutiny as to what the future of the BBC is, because public trust in that broadcaster has now gone right downhill.
Well,
Yeah,
they have to do better in terms of putting their hands up. Because, I mean, if we're looking at this story, a whistleblower has even said that in the next morning at the editorial meeting, he was invited along, and this was raised, that the clip had been spliced up and criticised live, and he said it was kind of dismissed and pushed onto the...
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? I mean, we've seen that the Michael Prescott dossier obviously wasn't taken seriously. Half the, all the problems they're facing at the moment, especially the one with Trump, they could have actually handled that at an earlier stage if they'd taken that seriously. Now we know that, they're now serial splicers when it comes to Donald Trump tapes. And you can understand why Trump is so angry. I think it's absolutely right the BBC apologised, and apologised personally to the president. I'm not sure that he really needed to actually launch a billion-dollar lawsuit against them. I mean, I just don't see the point. He had his pound of flesh with the resignation of Tim Davie and Deborah Turner as the head of news.
He actually had a fulsome apology. I mean, even the apology sort of says, it was an unintentional mistake.
Yeah, I think that perhaps the apology should have been a lot more grovelling than it actually was. But at least they have apologised. They've promised not to use it ever again. So effectively, that's the retraction he was originally asking for.
Does this change things, though? A second clip? Will Trump back down?
Knowing President Trump, not at the moment, because, I mean, quite rightly, he's angry over it. I mean, as anybody would be, and he's perfectly right to do so. Now, whether his billion-dollar lawsuit will take place, I think, is another matter.
Well, even if he could win it.
Yeah, there's a complication as to where it would be put. He wants to use Florida, but, there are a lot of technicalities around using that, so I'm not sure that that's quite the way. And also, it's our money. This is licence fee payers' money from the BBC. So I'm not particularly keen that we would be looking at $1 million.
No, I mean, I get that, but then plenty of people sue the NHS, and that's our money as well, isn't it? I mean, ordinary people make claims against the NHS, and that's our money. So, I mean, I don't know. Nigel, can we have a look at the Times? Because obviously we're all wondering to see what's in the budget. Rachel Reeves seems to be wondering what's going to be in the budget.
I think she is, yeah. This depends which paper you read. And so the Financial Times are saying she's moved away from the idea of income tax rises. So a little plan which was to drop national insurance by 2p, raise income tax by 2p, so working people wouldn't be affected. They say that's out the window. The Times says, no, she's going to do this, but she's dropping a different tax, which is limited liability partnership. She was going to tax them. Now, what these things are, lawyers, accountants, doctors use it. And the limited liability bit means that you're not liable for somebody else's mistake within the partnership. But the way that they actually pay themselves is from profits. So it's the profits of the partnership they get. What Rachel Reeves wants to do is charge them national insurance, which they don't currently pay because they count themselves as self-employed. But now she's actually thinking of moving away from that. So we're left with all the other taxes that are being mentioned. We could have a fuel tax, an alcohol tax, gambling tax, 8% national insurance on landlords. I mean, the whole thing goes, and the 20% exit tax. If you're rich and you want to leave the country, you have to pay out 20% for the privilege.
But apparently she scrapped that as well, according to the...
There's another paper says she scrapped that.
They're all saying different things, aren't they? It's indicative of the chaos, Claire. I mean, this is going to come down to the wire by the sounds of things.
But do you remember the days when there was the upcoming budget and nobody knew anything about it until that morning, and then you'd have this flurry of activity? Now we seem to have it weeks in advance.
We'd rather that, though. I mean, the anxiety for businesses up and down the country, just not knowing what's coming.
There is no confidence. The City are looking at it saying, well, this could be good, it could be not good, but we don't really know, and any decision that seems unpopular then gets U-turned on. I mean, it's almost budget by committee. She's putting these things out there, the Treasury are flying these flags, and people are shooting them down.
I think it's muddying the waters a bit, is one of the reasons. So whatever happens, she'll be able to say when the budget comes, I didn't do this one, and so you should all be really pleased about that.
Yeah, but with all of this, does any of this dig us out the black hole in a way that stimulates growth?
Well, I mean, that's the trouble with raising taxes, that it always affects growth. And, I mean, as far as Labour goes, what they've got to have is growth by the end of this Parliament before the election.
More radical, then? There are more radical ways to stimulate growth, which the other parties are...
But they're broke too.
Yeah, but it doesn't. But if you do things like, I mean, I hate to say it, but if you do things like reduce some forms of income tax, actually, I mean, the Lib Dems are talking about reducing VAT by 5%. It boosts. It does boost growth.
It does. But the trouble is that she hasn't got any money, so this is the difficulty.
Yeah. All right, you two. Thank you very much indeed. We'll see you later.